I'm thrilled to be joined by Camille Jaramis. We're going to have a conversation that I know is going to resonate with moms who are listening, no matter what phase of motherhood they're in or what phase of business they're in. So, thank you for joining me this evening, Camille. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me, Angela.
Yeah, it's so wonderful to be able to share any mompreneur's story and where they're at, but especially in the parenting tech space. The tech space is so male dominated. So for you to find like your place in that space is really exciting. And I know that alone will be inspiring. But let's start where your entrepreneurial journey began and what your background looked like and what you're doing now.
Yeah, easy. I actually come from more of a corporate background. So I've worked in technology and data science companies for the last, I think, about 15, 17 years or so. Always high growth scale ups, always with lots of incredibly intelligent people, which I've just really valued in my career. I've just constantly been learning the whole time
Right.
and exposed to new different ways of thinking and different insights and levels of understanding in whatever industry. But I work in the human resources side, or I have in the past, looking at people experiences and trying to simplify processes and chaos that exists within the employee space for businesses. And then I became a parent and it became about trying to figure it out for yourself without any of the rigor that exists in the corporate space. But my background's primarily in tech in London and Australia, which I've just really loved.
So let's talk about the fact that you had this identity shift when you became a mom, which, as all moms know, comes with its own challenges. So, talk about some of the challenges that you encountered. And it seemed like there was this tipping point where you were like, there has to be a better way. And how did that inspire you?
100%. So when I became a parent, I realized I'm actually not an intuitive parent. And my husband and I really struggled with the learning curve. I know the hormones are all over the place, but we took my oldest home, he's 5 now. And when we brought him home, I was just an absolute wreck, really struggling with the sleep deprivation, really struggling with the hockey stick learning curve that comes with raising a kid for the first time. I didn't have young nieces and nephews that lived nearby. I didn't have friends with kids, neither did my husband. And so, sort of stepping into this new role of being parents and looking after a baby when we've had no exposure, no experience, and no education was a real challenge. And I remember a week into it, we went out to a pub and we had little Hugo sitting in his little capsule, and I just cried into a mocktail, thinking like, what is this life? And looking around us and seeing all of the people who were like me a week ago. And suddenly I was dealing with grieving who I was and onboarding into this new life that I wanted and I loved, but I also didn't understand and couldn't see through. And then you layer in things like breastfeeding every 2 to 3 hours. No one really talks about the fact that means you get 1 hour of sleep if you fall asleep quickly. And actually, having a baby sent me into early perimenopause as well. And so it was just this like onslaught of change and struggle and discomfort physically and emotionally that I wanted more from it. And I wanted to understand it in the same way that I'd understood my life before kids. And so the shift that I experienced going from being competent and confident to being an absolute confused novice and an emotional wreck was a real low point, actually. And I had to do a lot of work to try and push through and understand. And one of the ways that I gained understanding was probably a bit unusual for most moms. They're not going to go out and spend a few $1,000s to become a certified sleep consultant. But for me, I was like, I need the information. Getting a sleep consultant one time is not going to do it because I'm going to face other problems and face other question marks. And I just want to be equipped with knowledge, confidence, clarity, insight. And so I spent a couple of months when my youngest was about three or 4 months old, educating through the baby sleep consultant company in New Zealand. How do you actually do this? What are all the resources? What are the expert texts, the research, the science, the child development, the science in that space as well, so that I could translate it for myself, but also so that I could have something to add value to my mother's group and my friends and random people. And so that led to starting a Facebook group, which just exploded. So the Facebook group started, I would have been happy with 5,000 people who I could help and give
Right.
routines and give answers and offer support to. And it's at about 670,000 members now. And that's as a private group, which is massive.
Right.
And when it was public, we'd get about 9 million monthly visitors, which was just incredible exposure. But I'm just one person, I can't do it. And so we've invited sleep consultants to join the group so that they're able to add value before they offer their services, so that everyone's able to get the education that they came for. So I'm really proud of how I turned around that challenging moment into something that actually lifts and lights up other parents, because it's not easy.
Oh no, I think it's so brave and important to share that story because nobody talks about being a new parent can be so lonely and isolating, and you feel like you're the only person going through it.
Mm.
And
Yeah, but side by side with other people who are also sitting there feeling like they're the only
right,
people going through it.
exactly. It is really tough. And you also go into it probably with this expectation that it's going to be great and you're going to
Yeah.
rainbows and butterflies, and it's just going to be lovely. And when it's not like that, we usually and understandably find ourselves in a place where we beat up ourselves more than find ourselves in the growth mindset that you did, which is wonderful. And I hope is inspiring anybody who's listening who's feeling that loneliness, that you can equip yourself with that education and connection in groups to feel more empowered. You're not alone, absolutely. It's just phenomenal that you started this Facebook group that just grew so much to support other moms. So, talk about how that happened and some of the challenges that you've encountered with that growth and
Mm.
just trying to support all of the people who really needed the information to suit their situation.
Yeah, and I think you've hit the nail on the head there, because the group itself is it's actually one of the largest parenting, like baby sleep training Facebook communities globally, which is super, super cool, which means that we've got really great reach. And it also means that we have a good understanding of what's happening in the mindset, because people are posting up their questions and people are responding with comments, thoughts, ideas, advice, all of that kind of stuff. But what I've seen, firstly, in terms of the growth, it just ballooned. It just absolutely exploded. So it took a little bit at the beginning where it was new and there was a couple of hundred people on there. And then we just started hitting these massive milestones, 250,000, 400,000, 500,000. It's 500,000 people. And it's now beyond that. And what that screamed to me was that there's something that's not working in traditional support for baby sleep, because we know a couple of things, right? We know that online search is static and it's one way. And so it doesn't actually allow you to put in any context at all. In fact, the more information you try to give it, how do I get my baby to sleep? They're this many weeks old. They've got this kind of allergy. This is how they've been going. I think they're in a leap, but they've no teething, but there's got some symptoms. Like you can't put that in Google, because it will just like panic it. Google will just fall over itself and start re-indexing new pages, and none of them are going to be a better fit, because it's trying to take into account too much information. And so that doesn't really work to take into account context. And on the far end of the scale, the most context driven, you've got sleep consultants, and they can be expensive and they can be inaccessible. They're amazing. And we didn't build you on to replace them. It's more just to bring that expert level of care into all other layers of parenting and affordability and so on. But again, like that's on the far end of the scale where it's all context driven, but it's mainly point in time. And what you can see manifesting in the Facebook group itself, in the community, is there's a lot of the same questions. Like the 4 month sleep regression obviously comes up constantly. 9 months, you've got separation anxiety. You've got the Wonder Weeks leap. If anyone hasn't familiarized themselves with the science over there coming out of the Nordic states, it's phenomenal. And it is like clockwork, and it's based on your child's due date instead of their birth date. But that shows up in fussiness, clinginess, sleep falling apart. If you don't have that knowledge or that exposure, then you start to think it's something that you're doing, and you start to change your parenting. And you can just see that constantly through the group. They're all the same types of questions. And without the additional context of, we don't want to sleep train and we're gentle, but we don't want to co-sleep. You know what I mean? As soon as you start to layer that stuff in, that's where it deviates. And that's also where the group struggles to respond, in the same way that Google kind of struggles to respond. So yeah, we'd noticed that there was a huge gap. And what I had tried to do was solve that through free ebooks. So in the course to become a certified sleep consultant, I made hundreds of pages of notes because I've got a terrible memory. So I'm like foggy as it comes. And I'm trying to capture these notes. And what I realized is there's themes and there's patterns. And particularly for a newborn, which can feel like the most confusing stage, it's more like a puzzle. And if you have all of the right pieces, they're going to sleep really well. And if you have different pieces or too many or not enough, then the sleep's not going to be as long or deep as it could be. And so that was really straightforward. And I wanted to bring that kind of information, that kind of clarity and cut through to as many people as I could. So I started to try and give the ebooks away. But then you come into psychology, right? People don't put value on things that are free. And so I had to put a price on them in order for people to actually take them up and get the help that they provided. And so it's just been this ongoing like journey of trying to provide resources and find the right balance between, I would give all of this away for free if I could, but now we got to pay for the tech, but also additionally there's value in it, and understanding the value and the comparison to the existing solutions is really powerful. I mean, we had a podcast, Yawn, the baby sleep training podcast. We had that for about 18 months and that was hugely successful. And yeah, it's just been an ongoing journey of trying to find the right way to support as many people as we can.
And so you had a really interesting comment when you were talking about how the tech wasn't filling the gap between what parents' questions were in their real life situations. It wasn't like a chat bot that they could
No.
type in. So let's talk about the role of AI in parenting. Right now, we're just in the infancy stage of AI itself, and we're trying to use it as best we can. But it seems like there are a lot of gaps. So, how can we start looking at the role of AI in parenting? Where is it fitting in?
It's Yeah, and it has the ability to fit everywhere if you do it right and nowhere if you don't. And what I mean by that is it's a daunting topic because it's so new and there are so many areas in which it is untested. And I've spoken to a lot of people about it actually. Being founder of an AI parenting company, it is a really, really hot topic. And it's something that we have to pay a lot of attention to, the sentiment of users as well as just generally within the parenting community. I've got a couple of thoughts. First is I saw a beautiful LinkedIn post that articulated it, that artificial intelligence and artificial does mean synthetic to some degree, but it also means made by a human. And so that has negative connotations with things like synthetic sweeteners and synthetic flavors or fake flowers. All of those kinds of things can create quite a negative vision of it in our minds. But then you have beautiful things that have been artificial that we love all the time, like paint. And like there's so many different examples of where artificial has actually become really powerful. And I think if there's the ability to reframe the fact that it's just something that's made by humans, it takes some of the scary stigma out of it. And for Yawn in particular, we trained it on everything that I trained on as a certified sleep consultant. Plus more science, plus more child development research, plus more of the narrowed down focus to make it really deep and niche so that it only does one job. Its only job is to look at baby sleep in the first 2 years. And we're expanding it out, but that currently the focus is baby sleep in the first 2 years. And I think going deep and niche in an area is what's going to make any technology successful. Because if you use a general model, if you use a general product, it feels like a chatbot and it feels impersonal because it's like popping these questions into ChatGPT. It's not going to ask you a ton of questions to understand about your context, and it's not going to give you really specific things unless you really tailor that prompt. Instead, it's going to summarize all of the information that it has access to at the same time, which is basically like you spending a lot of time on Google or other online search to synthesize and do some deductive reasoning based on the 40 tabs that you've got open and the 70 blogs that you've read that all say different things. And so I think that deep and niche nature of tech and AI in the parenting space is the only appropriate way to do it, because it builds trust by doing something really well in one particular focus area. And so that's, for us, that's the mindset around AI technology. But also I think there's a beautiful opportunity for it. If we can help parents understand the why and what's causing something, it allows them to think about it in more of a structured way, and it allows them to get some more time back from the mental load that they're already carrying, because there's so many things that you're trying to figure out as a parent and project manage, and there's noise, mental noise, physical noise,
Right.
and there's what we actually need is on-demand clarity. We don't need more information. We
Right.
need clarity and answers that fit our baby, not just a baby. And at the moment, the solutions are mainly around a baby, a generic baby that I can read about on a blog, as opposed to one that understands me, my needs, the problems that I'm trying to solve, my parenting philosophy, what works, what doesn't work with my kids, that kind of level of detail. So I hope that answers your question, but a few different angles to tackle it from.
While you're talking, I'm just thinking about what you were just relaying. It's
Mm.
having this beautiful effect, this synthesized information is having this beautiful effect on humans. Humans are helping to train the tech in this deep niche that's sorely needed. And then it's giving moms more confidence, more clarity, and you're giving people their sleep back. You're helping to train children to sleep better, and I'm sure that it just all has a ripple effect. So it goes back to, even though the AI is artificial in a sense, it is created by a human, but it's just really having this beautiful ripple effect. I think that that hopefully is helping listeners think about tech differently, because I think that there's often this kind of binary
Yeah.
approach to tech, and it's either you embrace it or you don't. You mentioned Ask Yawn. Is there anything else you'd like to mention about what it does and how it helps users? I think it's really exciting that you're looking to expand it in the future to synthesize information about all stages of growth. Man, I'm like, where was this when I had little ones?
Yeah, imagine the thing that I think about a lot at the moment, because I was recently on a dad podcast, which was a whole different way of trying to structure the thinking, because
Sure.
they're very solution focused. And the conversation there was around how dads can be more present and start to level the playing field when they want to be more hands-on, but actually they haven't had the opportunity to be able to learn more about their baby, because the mum has they are physically tethered through baby through so breastfeeding, or they're the stay-at-home parent and they're the working dad, and trying to come in and provide support when you don't have all of the context and all of the history and all of the things that the mum is trying to balance and think about. And it was a really interesting concept to consider, the fact that it's a leveler. It
Mm.
creates a shared plan. It's
Hmm.
shared context. All that context is already in there, and mum or dad can pop in and ask questions, but you're also aligned because you're going through the same thing. It doesn't depend on both of you having read the same articles and having spent 9 hours
Mm.
researching around, you know, the different leaps and regressions that seem to happen. Instead, it's sort of all baked in the background. And then what you have is an interface that feels like you're texting with an expert, because it takes all of that science and it translates it in a really hyper personalized way into the context of your family, your child. And I think that's all we can, we should start to demand online, like on demand clarity and the ability to cut through and hyper personalize and have tools that actually reduce the mental load, not add to it.
Right.
And I think if
Right.
there's anything that's creating mental noise and creating more stress, like I know some people don't like to track the nap wake times and feed
Mm.
times and stuff. They just want to be a bit more fluid. Like you should have the ability to do that and not feel pressured to use tech that like most people are using to try and understand that next like time to put your baby down to sleep or whatever it is. I think
Hmm.
the beautiful opportunity is everyone gets access to something that has all of the information and you're on the same page and you're both in the same account. I think that's probably the main thing that I would love to say about it.
Mm.
And a great way to think about tech and support and relationships, and imagine how much that would help bickering in marriage when you know you're tired and carrying the mental load and your husband is waiting to be told things to do because he doesn't know,
Yeah, I've had a
but
few
now
of
they
those
do.
conversations.
Yeah, just one or two. It's fine. But there's a role that a woman ends up playing. I can't remember where I read that, but the woman ends up typically being the project manager of the house, and the husband is waiting, or the partner is waiting to be told what to do because they don't have all of the same things kicking about in their own brain.
Right.
And so like with baby sleep in particular,
Mm.
it's so messy and it's so confusing. And there's so many different elements and facets to it that
Mhm.
complicate it, that you both can't possibly be across all of it.
Well, not only that, if you have a mom who's dealing with the hormones and her identity shift,
Mm,
especially that first baby, and she doesn't, she's beating herself up silently because she thinks that she's doing something wrong and it's because of her that things are not going
mm.
well with the sleep issue. How, all of that background noise is going on, and somebody's expecting, like, how can I help you? And you're like,
I don't know. I got no idea. I
I
don't know what's
can't help
happening.
that. So that is really incredible and probably one of the most hopeful and promising viewpoints of tech, I think, that I've heard in a very long time, quite honestly, because having been through all that, I have an 18-year-old now, but how much that would have simplified things and really given us some support that it was much needed, but we managed to get through it. And we
Yeah.
learned a lot about ourselves and our child, but not everybody is in that situation, or has the space or the temperament to do that. And it just seems like that it is more of an equalizer, which I
Yeah.
think is really promising too, because you have a different vision of having a tech business than maybe some other large tech companies. And talk about how you see your company being able to give resources to parents who might not be able to access a sleep trainer or somebody who can provide that really high level personalized consultation to parents who are just trying to survive.
Yeah. 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 100%. I've thought a lot about it, and there's things that I like and don't like about other companies and tech companies, as everyone would have opinions about. But for us, the accessibility nature of it is absolutely paramount, because I don't believe that information and education and things should be gatekept and charged at exorbitant prices and so on. And I love sleep consultants. I am one. I know a lot, and I would love to support anything that we can do to help them provide the best possible education and support for the people who can afford to work with them as possible. But I'm also really conscious that they can cost hundreds to thousands of dollars for one night of help or a couple of weeks of back and forth. You've also got options like doulas, postpartum doulas, who tap in for a period, but then have to tap out and go back into working with someone from labor through to the end of that fourth trimester, the first 3 months when your baby's a newborn. And so anything that we're able to do to provide some ongoing support through those avenues is one thing. But actually, what about everyone else? What about everyone who doesn't have a couple of hundred or a couple of $1,000s to spend on a sleep consultant, or doesn't understand the value of a doula? Or do you know what I mean? There's something in this middle ground between online search isn't up to scratch. It's not doing
Mm,
enough for us. It's actually probably letting us down and making us more confused, upset, anxious, overwhelmed.
mm.
And on the far end of the scale, that's not accessible, or it's not where I'd like to spend my money. And so what other options have you got? You've got advice from TikTok or Instagram or friends or a mother-in-law or something like that. And
Right.
that's not fit for your baby either. That's actually just something that might have worked for one person. It doesn't guarantee that it's safe advice. It doesn't guarantee that it's going to work for your child, because again, you've got all of that context and background and dynamic, philosophy, temperament, all of those things that actually play a really important role in what's going to work and not work for your own baby. And so that's what we've tried to solve. It's that specific wedge between those other solutions, to say those aren't good enough for absolutely everyone. They don't fit absolutely everyone. So how can we give a clarity and support at scale while not compromising on the level of care or knowledge or insight, the science of research, the development, all of that stuff that is so important to have as a background in the knowledge of the tool, and then be able to translate that science and detail into something that's actually going to come like a back and forth with you. It's basically like we've designed the experience to feel like you're texting with an expert. So you've got your questions, they're going to come back at you with questions that you then answer. And it's back and forth until Yawn has enough information to be able to give you a plan, information, advice, ideas, whatever it is that you're looking for. And then every time you come in, it's got that in its memory. And you can delete it at any time. We actually don't care about your data at all. We care about the fact that you put enough context in there that the results are going to be fit for purpose.
Hmm.
So that's one angle that we look at when it comes to the product. No ads, nothing like that. Like I
Mhm.
want it to be something that people love using and that
Mhm.
gives and does not take. And I
Yeah.
hate it when I'm like trying to come up with a recipe or something and there's just like pop up, pop up, pop up, and I'm
Mhm.
scrolling past ads to try and find where the recipe is. Just give me the recipe.
Mhm.
Just tell me what I need. Like, why
Yeah.
do we need to have all of this noise? I don't want to bring that to parents. I actually just want to get rid of some noise, just make
Mhm.
it easier for all of us, because I have tons of connections and incredibly intelligent people working on this with me, who, by the way, are all volunteers and they're all parents. And like, how do we just give the best of what we have available, powered by the latest technology, into parents everywhere?
Mm.
It's what we're trying to do.
I think that's a brave mission because, uh, especially when you're a startup, I think you feel this pressure to do what everybody else is doing. And you really just think you can't possibly have a business that does all the things that you wish it could do. And there are all these pressures to constantly grow at this fast, enormous pace. And so I think that there's this real role, especially for female entrepreneurs, to begin to create businesses like you just described that actually serve people in a different way and aren't necessarily just focused on profit. And I mean, those are,
100%.
yeah, those are important things, but talk about how you it's just gotta be really difficult to have that fortitude to stay with your mission.
It is, but I think that's you've got to have something like that in order to continue doing it, particularly as a mum
Right.
and a mumpreneur who's trying to do this while raising kids and being a present wife and having friends and hobbies and things. You kind of need a deep anchor. And for me, some of those anchors, like what you've talked about, is I would cap Yawn's profit and invest back into the parenting community, because I just think that's what we need. We don't need infinite profit, infinite growth. It's a
Mhm.
product business that is low enough to pay for our tech and high enough to be able to get the right kind of quality people that we are able to bring in to work on different projects, features, deliverables, all that kind of stuff. But actually anything above that,
Mhm.
I'm not a fan of greedy corporates. I actually would love to go back. I don't know when it was. I think about it more than I should. I feel like it was in like the 1920s or something, when in America, like General Electric or General Motors, whoever it was, they played an active role in community, in giving back, in supporting and driving that sense of connection, belonging, community, social good. There was a moment in time, particularly in America, that existed. And
Mhm.
what I would give to go back to that in any small way that I can. And the way that I see us doing that is by doing something like capping profit so that we can invest back, so that we can help. God, imagine doing this as a single mum.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's hard enough when my husband travels and we've got a
Mhm.
3 and a 5-year-old, and it's getting easier, but good
Mhm.
heavens, like trying to do that when they were younger,
Mhm.
unimaginable. I wouldn't wish that on my greatest enemy. It's hard. This is
Yeah.
really hard. And imagine if we could provide some kind of relief or support in the community that just makes it all a little better and leaves the world just a little bit of a better place than when we found it. That lights me up. That gets me out of bed.
Mhm.
5 o'clock in the morning to work on this, and late at night,
Mhm.
that kind of stuff is incredibly powerful and required if you're going to have any kind of resolve as a mompreneur.
And that just segues so much into I was going to ask you what keeps you driven and focused when you do have so much on your plate as a mom and an
Mm,
entrepreneur. And so for anybody listening who might be struggling with staying focused and staying consistent, having those principles and that mission for your company that's bigger than yourself or bigger than just your business can really be the glue that kind of keeps you in the game. I love that you remind us of that. And I think oftentimes we just have this focus to make it when we start our businesses and don't think of the bigger impact that we can have and how that can really lead to longevity. And the impact that you're obviously having is really incredible. So What are some of the future trends that you see for AI and tech and parenting? And what's the future for Ask Yawn?
Firstly, before we move on, your comment there around working so incredibly hard as a mompreneur and having those anchors that you need.
Yeah.
So I had a realization earlier this year when I was just doing such big hours, and I realized even if I killed myself for this, there is no guarantee that it would be successful.
Mm.
And what an eye-opening rebalancing moment that was for me, because I thought I need to be able to look back at the end of the time, at the end of the day, we're all doing life for the first time and the only time. And I need to be able to look back at my life without regret and find the balance that means that I didn't over index in this thing that has no guarantee to be successful. I know the opportunity that's sitting in front of us with Yawn. I know that. I know the impact that it can have, but it also, there's a bit of luck involved in getting the right people at the right time, the right kind of exposure, whatever it is. But even if I'm stressed about it all the time and I spend my waking hours working on it, that doesn't guarantee its success at all. And so the way that I've sort of tried to tackle that is by trying to find that balance. Maybe it's slow mornings so that I can have late nights, but it's slow mornings in bed with the kids with a hot chocolate in the cold weather, or I'll put them in daycare late. I don't know exactly what it is every time and it changes, but you have to have that level of visibility across your entire life, knowing that nothing has a guaranteed outcome and you have to do it in a way that you're not going to regret and that you're actually going to be incredibly proud of. And being a mompreneur and having kids, I don't want to miss out on their childhood for something that's not guaranteed. What is guaranteed is right now I've got time with my kids when they're young. And so there's this constant like push pull to try and balance that out. And the way I solve that is by expanding the team to try and outsource. But
Yeah.
your question was actually about future trends in
Well,
parenting AI and
yeah,
tech.
now
Yeah.
that you mentioned that, it also reminds me too, we also talk about the success of our businesses also don't mean success at home. And making sure, honestly, I think focusing on our families and making sure that is successful is a better predictor of business success and life success than the other way around, which we usually focus on the business success first. So I love
Mm,
that you remind us of that. And I think it's a powerful point. But two, we're always talking about not being able to serve from an empty cup.
mm,
And
yeah.
so it is. And I think you quickly come to realize there is no such thing as balance, but you learn how to juggle it all a little bit better and lean into what needs your focus at the moment. And with the promise that you'll revisit what you haven't been able to give your full attention to.
Yeah, I have a hectic to-do list of life
Right?
admin, but it's fine. I think with the juggle and the balancing, you're so right. Like something has to give on some front, and there's a few ways that I try and think about it. I don't know, I can't remember the name of the lady, but credit to anyone who remembers what her name is. Glass versus plastic balls. Have you thought about parenting or life and balance in that structure?
Mm-mm, no, I
It,
haven't.
it it was actually in the context of motherhood and work, actually, the speaker who first proposed that mindset. But glass versus plastic balls, you have things that if you drop them, they will shatter and they make a
Mm,
big difference. And then you have things that will bounce or that you can just pick up later.
right.
And every day for us, my husband and I use this a lot. And in fact, I use it a lot at work as well. But glass versus plastic balls can change day to day. And maybe what feels like a glass ball needs to be revisited or rescoped or something if you're not possibly able to carry too many of them. But you're juggling a lot, you're holding a lot, and some stuff is going to drop, and you need to be thoughtful about what is or what can or what does. And by knowing what your glass balls are, it allows you just to be really intentional, and it's liberating. You
Mm,
know, it like glass ball, my 5-year-old is graduating preschool. Like
right.
he's up on stage, he's excited. This is a meaningful moment for him. I need to be there for him. Plastic ball is, maybe it's, I can't think of a comparatively strong example, but maybe it's something to do with work or deliverables or coming back to people or going on a podcast. I don't know what it is, but
Getting back to your
you've got to be
emails.
able. Yeah, exactly, exactly. Or inbox zero. Like forget about inbox zero. Let's let's just forget about that and stop trying to strive for that, because it's half the time it's impossible
Oh
unless you
my
do
gosh.
insane hours.
Yeah. Hats off to anybody who has accomplished that, but I am far off from that goal.
Yeah, I think I've got about 9,000 unread emails in my personal. It's
Woo.
fine. Anyway, it's plastic ball.
Right.
But glass versus plastic. And also like outsourcing, not agonizing. I used to agonize about absolutely everything. Like everything for me had to be homemade because I'm trying to reduce carcinogens and parabens and plastic and make sure the kids are eating organic, but also like sometimes they just want pasta. Like I'm just constantly agonizing about all these things. And so I'm at the point where I'm just outsourcing. I'm like, I know that they're going to eat this particular thing that my husband makes. Yes, he can cook, even if it's not going to be perfect or exactly what I would want that like hits all those nutritional values. Like I can't carry all of this at the same time. I've got to put something down
Mm.
and outsource it because I can't not let them eat. But I've got to put something down in order to make space for something else that is a glass ball for me in that moment or on that day, and just surrender, I guess, in the
Right.
moment, like surrender to whatever it is that needs the attention, personal work, whatever, so that I can then have a time that stops or ends so that I can fully pivot and be present in something else. But yeah,
Mhm.
I don't multitask anymore either. I just can't carry all that stuff in my brain at the same time. Mm-mm.
Yeah, I know. Monotasking is such a luxury.
It really is. And it's time chunking and just being able to focus on one thing deeply or one type of task, like just get through all those emails for the first couple of hours of the day. Great, done, sorted. Now I can move on with my life.
Right.
Yeah. So many little like life hacks and tips.
Oh, there
Yeah.
is. And you really just have to be on this constant pursuit and be curious about what that will be for you in whatever stage
Yeah.
you're in, because our kids will continue to evolve and grow, and so will our businesses and
Mhm.
our identity shifts. And I'm trying to figure out what the heck do I do with more time now that I have an 18-year-old who
Yeah.
drives, and like that's a whole thing.
Yeah. I've heard empty, you're going to be an empty nester before you know it. And then you're going
It's
to be like, who
like,
am I and what do I do?
what?
Yeah. Yeah, but then put
So
that on your list of things to do. You've got to also like maintain your identity and have hobbies and interests and stuff. And you're also just like white knuckling through life for a couple of years, particularly in the
right,
early ones.
exactly. That's what I preach. What sad state I would be in had I not started this podcast almost 5 years ago. Uh,
Mm,
and so, yeah, it's fighting for your identity and your passions and the life that you really want is so important, even in the
mm,
messy middle.
mm-hmm.
So let's talk about the future. I know we're running up a little bit against time, but yeah, let's talk about how things look on the horizon.
I think within broader AI and technology, a couple of shifts, we're already starting to see them with the rise of agentic. So the agents who you can actually give jobs and they will go away and do things that you could do on the internet. But we're moving into that era where support will be able to adapt to the family as standard instead of you trying to fit around a product and integrate that product into your life. It should integrate your life into it so that it provides the right kind of support, answers, jobs, mental clarity, whatever it is that whatever AI or technology tool you've engaged with
Right.
is built to do. But there's a couple of things. I think from a parenting perspective, I mentioned it earlier, but that hyper personalized support should be standard. We have the ability now. Technology exists and AI exists in a way that you don't have to do the work anymore. It will do the work.
Hmm.
But you need to be able to trust the tools that you're using to come with the right kind of background, niche, deep understanding, whatever it is, no matter what it is, even if it's like a cancer tool, right? You don't want a general AI thinking about cancer. If you want one that specializes in breast cancer, focuses on breast cancer, that's the tool that you would want to use.
Hmm.
And so going very, 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 very deep and very, very niche in areas, I think is something that we're going to see more and more of, because that's when you can start to relax into it and release some of the stuff that you're trying to carry into it so that it has that ability to support you in a really deep way.
Hmm.
Um, I'm looking forward to the change. I can't wait to see the tide turn in things like my Facebook group in a really tangible way. I want it, I think, to me, if a tool like this is, if a tool like us, Yawn in particular, is successful, we would see fewer people having to post up in an online forum where they're seeking advice from strangers they've never met, who don't ask questions and who don't offer, you know, necessarily safe sleep advice, or maybe they do and you don't know and you just kind of got to patch this whole thing together. I think when we see that shift, it's going to be such a powerful moment to know that support has changed, and there's going to be lots of tools that do different types of problem solving with you. And I think when we can stitch those together as well, it's going to be a really beautiful moment, so that you've got this end-to-end easy support system that doesn't sleep for one, so you can use it whenever you like. It doesn't have any kind of judgment or bias. There is no shame. You can do it however you want because there's no single right way to parent. So let's have tools that actually allow for that and support that and encourage you and give you a little pep talk when you're down. And I think there's some beautiful opportunity. I made a joke recently, I would love to introduce different personas that you can choose from as well, just to, like Miss Trunchbull. Imagine if you had her as the persona in your product, just telling you what to do. Sure, okay, I'm going to comply. Or maybe it's like a sweet aunt, or a well-meaning, I don't know. I don't know what it is, but imagine being able to just fully personalize the experience that you're having, because you can. Like, I get mine to talk to me like Jason Statham any day of the week. Do you know what I mean? Give me a little bit of attitude, but also if I could get that Cockney accent, it would be just hilarious. But I would just love any tool to be fully. I don't know if my husband would want to use Yawn if I had it set up as Jason Statham, but hey, that's up to him. Because I'd be there living my best life. But I think that, that deep personalization, the fun, the play back into tech and parenting instead of that awkward, weird chatbot style stuff would be really nice to see.
This has been a really powerful conversation, and we've talked about parenting and motherhood and that identity shift and navigating the early years, but also then starting and growing a business with a bigger mission, and also hopefully taking away some of the fear that we're feeling right now at this disruptive time where lots of paradigms are changing and we're having to adopt new mindsets and new ways of doing things that can actually free up time, make us better at being parents, business owners, partners, all of those things. So I just really think that this is a hopeful conversation about how we can be parents and business owners and look to the future with a lot less fear that I think we're feeling right now. So thank you so much for that. I think you're doing just something that is so amazing that just can have such a ripple effect. And so I'm really excited to see it grow and flourish. And if you had a takeaway that you wanted to leave with overwhelmed moms listening right now, what would that be?
Oh, good question. Probably something more personal. I think it's okay to grieve the pre-child you as well, the one who you probably compare yourself to and what you would be capable of doing if you weren't exhausted and sleep deprived and triggered every time your kid cries, and trying to show up to client meetings and deadlines and deliverables when you've got a kid who wakes unpredictably and so on. I think you're okay to grieve that moment. It's okay. I think motherhood is just a constant evolution, and that doesn't necessarily mean bad, even if it feels really, really hard. And I know that because I've lived it, and I know that because that's also my audience. Those are my customers. Those are the people who I talk to the most. They're the ones who are the most depleted and exhausted. And I think it's just to give yourself some grace. It's okay. And this will pass. They say that all the time, this too shall pass, or one of those many other sort of cliched parenting things. But just to drop another one, it's the hardest and best thing you'll ever do. So give yourself some grace and find a way to understand what those glass and plastic balls are so that you can find a bit of peace in how you live your life.
I love
Most
that.
important thing.
Yeah, one of my favorite moments on the podcast was a doula talking about how, in that moment of birth, she not only witnessed a new life being born, but a mother being born at the same time.
Yeah.
We don't focus on that. We're all like preparing the child and preparing for that, but not the new person that we are and we will continue to be. So, I love that. And yeah, absolutely. You got to give yourself so much grace, especially
Yeah.
when you endeavor to not only be a mom, but also a business owner. You're really pat yourself on the back. You're going way above and beyond than anybody expects you to. So be sure you're good to yourself. Thank you so much,
Love that.
Camille. It's been such a pleasure talking to you. And let listeners know where they can connect with you, learn more about Ask Yawn.
Yeah, easy. Askyawn.com. So that's yawn as in askyawn.com. You'll find everything you need there.
I love it. And it's been a wonderful conversation. Thank you so much for spending time with us this evening.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's been great.